professional, bro. All right, welcome to the can opener.
Hello, everyone.
I believe this is episode 22, although I'm not too sure. The sun's out, the flowers in bloom, and we're recording episode 22.
Shout out to Japan.
Shout out to Japan. Why?
We got like 2 viewers from there.
Oh, yeah,
two listeners.
Shout out
two
to
listeners.
Japan. I don't even know if you understand what we're saying. Imagine listening to a podcast in another language.
Yeah, I don't know.
You'd have to sit there and like translate it. You'd have to sit there and read the fucking transcription.
Yeah, but like so many people know English.
I guess so.
It's a basic bitch language.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, definitely all the basic bitches know this language. Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, shout out to Japan. Shout out to San Fran.
San Francisco.
Shout out to all the homies. I always say it every time. There's just so much support, Luke, from all my good friends. I got a message from Kayla.
Oh.
From Kayla, some chick I worked from at Harvey's, and she's like, "Yo, I listened to your podcast for the first time, and I was kind of pissed because like I'm on episode 20. You couldn't like fucking listen to it." No, I'm kidding, Kayla, but she said, "To be honest, like great work, keep it up, buddy."
Nice.
Exclamation! I was like, "Man, I appreciate that so much."
Has anyone given you like negative comments?
Not negative comments. I asked Kalen, like, give me some feedback, like, because he listens to it often, and give me some feedback. And he told me to stop swearing so much, and I was like, that's probably a good call. Well, I think I swore more at the beginning because it was like a nervous thing. It's like nerve wracking, and it was like a filler.
Yep.
Instead of letting the silence play itself out, I just say fucking shit and Jesus Christ and C-U-N-T.
Okay.
All the misogynistic terms you could ever want.
Yep.
But thanks for reminding me. Shout out to Josh Ronson. I appreciate you so much, dude. I couldn't even put into words that day. He sent me, so if you follow the Instagram page or the Facebook, he sent me this little graphic, and it's just such a sweetheart thing to do, just so out of the blue. Always knew that kid was a good kid, but like I haven't seen the guy in like 2 years, and he just sends me this little graphic intro for, I guess I'll put it on the YouTube videos and I'll like do ads with it and stuff. Just so, I don't know, I just appreciate it so much.
Yeah, people used to like sometimes talk smack about like how Josh would be like making beats on the computer or like editing or like auto-tune, but you're creating in high school. Like what?
No, that's the
what
thing.
Do you read?
Dude, shout out to fucking Josh, man.
Yeah.
He was like making music and doing beats and like editing all that. He was like 12 years old.
Haters don't get paper.
Haters don't get paper. Oh, that's such a good example. Haters don't get paper. And Josh Ronson, he's past that.
You got to start somewhere.
No, exactly. It's so true. It's such a good point. And like looking back on it, wow, what a difference maker.
Yeah. And like people would pay like hundreds of dollars for what he whipped up for you.
Oh, 100%. I was going to pay someone, like I was thinking about, I was like, I need a graphic to be, and it makes it look more professional, but I was willing to pay hundreds of dollars for that.
Mm-hmm.
Just send it over for free. So shout out to Josh. I appreciate it so much. There's nothing I can do to repay you. I asked him how much he wanted to, how much he would usually charge for something like that. And he said, "No, don't worry, buddy." I said, "Oh, you're such a sweetheart."
Yo, so Facebook.
What? Oh yeah, that data.
Yeah.
Wait, first
Zuckerberg.
Wait. First, shout out to our sponsors, because this is the legit podcast. We're legit podcasters. Pop-up Podcasting, Ottawa's premium podcast studio, over on 130 Albert Street, downtown Ottawa, Canada. Woo-hoo. Hit it up. You can get your recording, editing, and your marketing done there. And JP Davidson's the owner, and he employs me, so shout out to him. I appreciate it. And that's about it. So yeah, Facebook.
Mark Zuckerberg's going down the drain.
Yeah, what's happening? I didn't know he was 5'6", man. What a dweeb. Like, 5'6".
I saw some like comment about him. I don't know where, Instagram or YouTube or something. Is like, yeah, they edit all his photos so he doesn't look so small. It's like reminds me of like Hobbits. Like, you know how they do like the film editing, so like the angles make them look smaller.
Yeah, literally.
It's the opposite.
They got him standing on like milk crates every time they take a picture.
Yeah.
I never, because I thought he was like 6 foot. I would have never assumed that he was that short from anything I've ever seen him in.
Yeah, he has like a big. He has like big feet. Like his head is.
Yeah, his head too.
It's big.
That's a thing, dude. There's a thing. Famous people have big heads,
Whoa.
big faces.
Oh,
it looks good on camera when you have a big face. I remember I
used to say that all the time about actors.
Have you ever, Rick Mercer?
Yeah.
Or classic Canadian. But I saw him once, and his head was almost literally the size of his entire body.
Yeah.
It looks, the proportions look way better on camera, but there's something about that. Anyway, Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, so I guess he's being like he was summoned to the United Kingdom. Yeah. He was summoned to the United Kingdom over the data breach. Yeah, he looks like a lizard. Yeah. H3.
You need the visuals with it though. So you summoned to what, sir?
The UK for for the what is it? The Cambridge Analytical, is that what it is?
Oh, the dude with the pink hair talking?
Yeah, like the whistleblower, but he was also just summoned to the UK over the data breach.
Okay, so did you do a lot of reading on this? Because I kind of read the headline and then I started reading a little bit, and this dude... So the data breach, is that a different thing than this whistleblower who's got the pink hair and he's talking about... Those are two separate things?
It's kind of this the same thing, and it wasn't really a data breach. Like, it's not like they got hacked.
Yeah. So what is it? Explain it.
They collected data to run algorithms for like social opinions, or like just not physical, but like characteristics of people, to see like what they might be into. So if you like put a certain meme out or like an image, who might respond well to that, and then who might respond to that image and then be more like susceptible to the Trump campaign's messages.
True, but weren't they already doing that like before the internet, when they'd have like through cable TV?
Yeah,
like they'd record what the TV was doing. Whether
I'm not sure, but
I guess it's way less interactive than Facebook is.
Yeah, and they they weren't supposed to, or something, or there's some I don't actually know.
Scary, man. Think about the power that is, understanding the habits and what pretty much every single person connected to the internet is doing, and why they're doing it, and what that's like. There's no better marketing analytics that you could get than that.
Yeah, because you're in someone's head when you get all that information.
And when you're in someone's head, you can sell them products instantly, easily. You can manipulate everything they come into contact with, and it's all on their website too. Mm-hmm. That's fucking scary, dude.
Yeah, and someone was I didn't read this article, but it was like a headline on a Reddit thread, but it was Facebook isn't a social, it's like a surveillance website masquerading as like a social media outlet, which might be true. Mm-hmm. It certainly seems that way. And
can it be a social media website without it being a surveillance?
No, and I think that's like something that's probably going to come out in like a 5 or 10 years. It's like we first treated the internet as like a commons, like it's like this free space that everyone gets to use, and it's like it's safe for everyone, and like, you know, it crosses national borders, and like it's a common good. But I don't think it should be treated that way, and like I think people should be educated on how to safely use it.
Did that change when these multi-billion-dollar businesses started popping up within that landscape?
Yeah, definitely, because they started like it's been admitted by Facebook and like people who worked at Facebook and have left that like they purposely tried to mess with people's minds to get them addicted to Facebook and like get them.
I think we talked about this before because Chris Carnduff told me to watch an interview of some former Facebook exec or whatever.
Yeah, it's probably the same guy.
Some Indian guy.
Yeah, the short brown guy.
Yeah. And he said they literally made the website. What's it called?
The interface?
The interface of the website like a slot machine. So every time you refresh, you're hoping for like one new notification.
True.
It's like 3 cherries, right? You keep pulling that fucking lever. So trippy.
Yeah, and what I'm interested in now is because there's like people getting banned and like people getting in trouble for like posting like extremist stuff or like politically incorrect views on Twitter or like Facebook. I'm wondering if it's better that everyone's on the same platform, or is it okay that these new platforms are popping up where people are fleeing to because they get banned? You know what I mean? Because there's websites like Gab, which is like really alt-right and like far-right heavy population on there. So is it better that we're all on the same platform so that some views have a chance of being spread, or is it okay that some people are going on to other platforms so that they don't get banned, so that they still have a chance to express their views?
I guess it's like,
because that's what I'm worried about.
I guess an analogy for that is big government, small government. Like big government would be having everybody on Facebook and then they control the herd, or having just a bunch of little municipalities, which would be all these different social media.
Yeah, but like the problem to me is like there was
sites.
There was like the dilemma of feedback loop and like echo chambers, and aren't we making that worse by banning people and then making them go on to other websites? If they go onto another website where all they see is all right talking points, like you're just making the problem worse. It's the idea of like forcing people underground.
Exactly. And we've kind of come to the point where it's such a hard thing to wrap your head around, because I have no idea, because these companies, Facebook is run by a certain amount of people that make the decisions, and those certain amount of people do not have the most diverse opinions on certain things. So it's like, are we gonna let them control what we can say? Do we trust them enough that their morale will guide us in the right direction? And it's such a tough, because I have no idea. I'd like to think so. I'd like to think that the market would control how the market would control what companies are getting used and what aren't.
Yeah, depending on who like allows for freedom. Or
And if Facebook's banning, I think some of the stuff, it's so hard. I heard this great quote from someone who said, if we are going to protect the beautiful speech, we have to protect the ugly speech too. So it's like, it's so hard. If someone was like KKK, neo-Nazi, blah, like all this crazy shit, should they be banned, or should they just hopefully be shunned by the market? Should they be actually banned from the platform, or should we hope that people are intelligent enough and smart enough to understand that we shouldn't bring power to those kind of thoughts?
Yeah. Maybe like Facebook doesn't trust how smart people are now.
Well, dude, does anybody, man?
Yeah, I guess people aren't smart anymore.
No, I certainly don't think that we should know everything about everything that goes on, because there's going to be some terrible decisions made and terrible judgments in the court of public opinion. And it's scary.
Yeah. Yeah, because I don't know. I guess it's just maybe Facebook is questioning like the competence of people and like how easily people are today like how easily people are radicalized today.
But also, I think they're thinking it's like you said, it's a commons, it's an open platform. There's people who are on there from 70 years old to probably even 9 years old. So, and there's no parental advisory sticker on Facebook.
Yeah.
So are we okay with letting some children see those messages? Are we okay with letting some children like watch Alex Jones and kind of like get into it?
Yeah.
Or are we going to have to forcibly put our hand over these voices? And what are the repercussions of silencing these people? Because I agree with you, because it will create these echo chambers. But
yeah, because they got to go somewhere. They're not going to stop talking.
They're not going to stop talking, and they're going to go, and they're all going to go. They're not going to spread out. They're not going to saturate themselves. They're going to go into a community. And I don't know, who knows what that'll breed. I think the more ignorance we have and the less education we have, there's going to be more people that go there no matter what, right? But it's a lot of political views are hereditary, or it's not even political views, just views in general.
Yeah.
Especially if you live in a farm in Alabama and you see your 2 sisters, your mom, your dad, and your 3 cousins, and those are really the only people you have in your life. Plus the 12 other people in your class who all have the same views as your parents.
Yep.
So it's like, I have no idea. But what is this? Like, didn't we already know that that Facebook was doing this? Like, why is this a big thing?
I don't know. I guess it's a big thing just because it affected the Trump campaign. Like, I think that's what has made a lot more attention towards it. Like the fact that the Trump campaign used it to help their chances of being elected.
And did Russia use it?
Oh, I don't. I personally, I side on the fact that they did. I have like some sympathies towards like some skepticism towards Russia, like how people are saying, "Oh, we can't blame Russia," but I think the fact that they are so like weakened by sanctions and like they're unpredictable and like really aggressive right now in like foreign policy. So the fact that people are so polarized in how they say, "Oh, it must be the Russians," or "No, the Russians didn't do anything." Well, no, you have to take a pragmatic stance. They are obviously trying to influence Western elections.
They're a part of the equation.
Yeah, they obviously have an interest,
but it also is not okay when every time I'm at the gym, I'm doing my cardio, I'm sweating my balls off, and I look on CNN and all you see is Trump, Russia probe, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's the only headline you'll see on there. Like, rarely ever will you see anything other than that headline.
Yeah.
And it's like, what? Nothing's happening. You're just talking about it. You're not a part of the investigation. You don't know the information that Robert Mueller has or whatever. So it's like, so I agree with the people when I read Facebook comments saying, like, I watched this video today of quote unquote Russian officials like meddling with the election box, and you can see them like shuffling papers and putting certain papers in different places, and these are all votes apparently. And then the top comment was it's known fact that the US did this with Bernie Sanders when they meddled with his election, his Democratic run for the leader of the Democratic Party. Why are we so focused on Russia when this shit is clearly happening in our own country, meaning America? It might even happen in Canada. Who knows? I don't put it past anybody to do that.
Yeah, I don't know. I would say like just that democracy is under threat, obviously.
100%, but why? Is it like the amount of information we're getting?
I don't know. I would say like that corporations probably play a large part in it, and like too much power at the top. And when that happens, people can be manipulated, and when politics and corporations and like business get too intertwined, there's really no room for democracy because corporate interests are not always the people's interests, and in most cases what we've seen with like globalization is it's usually not like corporations' interests when they go abroad for outsourcing labor or like extracting resources. It's usually directly opposed to what the local people's interests are.
It's like a separation. They always talk about the separation of religion and state. Does there need to be a new saying of separation of business and state?
Yeah, well, something I find very useful with like the Young Turks, even though I find most of their work despicable.
Of course,
I find Cenk Uygur like despicable. I don't like him, but
it's a goofy dude. He's just so goofy.
Their one good message is that like they need to get money out of politics.
Yeah, 100%. And I definitely but it's crazy because that was Trump's message too. That's why exactly. It could be a facade, right? Which my guess it is. I don't know. Maybe he actually believes that. I doubt it because he's a fucking salesman. He'll sell you anything. So that was their message too. So I think a lot of people agree with that. But how do you
do it?
How do you go down the right path of doing it? Because I'd even argue that Cenk isn't doing the right job either.
No, I would say he's a mess, but like there is always something useful from someone that you can extract, but with the Young Turks it's usually like there's too much money in politics. The Republicans, like, who are their donors, whatever. But
then he a great message, and I used to love watching the Young Turks back in the day. So the Young Turks, if no one knows, is like everybody's got to know who Alex Jones is.
Yeah, well, and if people
the greatest entertainer of all time, one of the legendary
/S.
Yeah,
sarcasm.
Yes, exactly.
Sarcasm.
But they're kind of, I'd say the Young Turks are like the Alex Jones counterpart. So it's like sort of the left-leaning version of that. That's kind of the balance in the force is the Young Turks and Alex Jones. But the Young Turks, they radicalize people.
Oh yeah,
they
definitely
radicalize people just like Alex Jones does. There's not much middle ground to be had with Cenk and the TYT crew's opinions. That's why it's scary.
Yeah, there's the same sort of like dilemma of ideology, and to me ideology is sort of like an easy way to find solutions when you don't have the time or like the capacity to rationally think something out. So then an ideology kicks in and just provides you that answer because you follow this framework, which is supposed to give you a certain outcome every time because it's a laid out process of how you view the world. And so with the Young Turks, it's like sort of oppression and sort of social welfare and identity, but not in the same sense of like right-wing identity, but more like identity of those who are marginalized. And because there's these sort of talking points, the ideology provides an answer which isn't always true or rational, which is why like you see if you want to have fun on a Saturday, this is what I do on my Saturdays. You go to the Young Turks comment sections on YouTube and you'll find some pretty funny stuff. You'll find probably more Alex Jones fans in the Young Turks comment sections than you will on like a lot of Alex Jones videos because it's like they want to be triggered. They go over there on purpose to see what Cenk is saying, and then libtards.
It's a troll thing.
Yeah,
it's a troll thing. It's like, of course, man. And they're battling. They're keyboard warriors, and they're in this ultimate world war over the internet between capitalism and communism, and it's all happening over this connected web we have all over the world. I mean, maybe that's better than shooting each other, but I mean, shooting each other is still happening.
Well, and when does it lead to that?
That's true. You never know. We're in the infancy stages. And I agree with another thing the Young Turks does, that the libtards and all these fucking words, this like leftist snowflake and this right neo-Nazi, like all these words, they just add fuel to the fire because it's identity politics. They're playing identity politics as much as Alex Jones is.
Definitely.
Which needs to be understood.
Yeah, the difference I think how I see it, at least, this might not be true, but
Mm-hmm.
the difference I see between Alex Jones and Cenk Uygur is like Cenk usually provides factual basis, like
Mm-hmm.
but he misconstrues it to fit his ideology or
Yeah.
to fit the narrative of his brand. Whereas Alex Jones, it's like he's grabbing at straws and then extrapolating to some grand conspiracy. So you know what I mean? Like there'll be
Mhm.
like a small something that's questionable, and then he'll
look in the camera and be like,
He'll-
"What if?"
he'll unravel it and then say, "Yeah, lizard people," like or like yeah, they're satanic child molesters. So to me, they're both not helpful.
Yeah.
But if I understand like the dichotomy of like, oh well, at least Cenk Uygur is like fact based
Mhm.
and Alex Jones is crazy,
Mhm.
and then Alex Jones is like, well, you're not getting the full picture from Cenk.
No.
He's misconstruing things. That's
Mhm.
true, but they're both not helpful.
They're both dramatizations
Yeah.
of capitalizing on confirmation bias, like you
Mhm.
said,
Yeah.
which is very unfortunate. We were having this conversation. Guillaume,
Yeah.
I was thinking about that the other day. Guillaume should come do a
you should
podcast.
come on.
Has he listened to it?
Which
Has he listened to the podcast?
I don't think so.
You should listen to it,
yeah,
bro. You need to send it to him.
League of Legends. He's too busy on League.
Oh, true. That fucking nerd.
Chubby nerd.
Chubby nerd. Just kidding. Shout out to League of Legends. He should come on though. But we were having that conversation too. It's like I was having this thought that the difference for me, a bare bones difference. This is ignoring a lot of nuance and a lot of certain specific details that go along with this. But often I find with the left versus the right, the left, it's dangerous to be radical on the left, just as it is dangerous to be radical on the right. But I feel the left often comes from a place of empathy and compassion. That is often the fuel to that fire. They may take it too far. They may not make rational decisions based on their emotional standpoint on the issue. But the right often comes from a conservative, selfish. I'm not saying selfish in a bad way, right? Like just, I need to keep these taxes for my family and
Reducing risk.
reducing risk. And it's just like the analogy in the airplane. It's like you need to put on your oxygen mask before you help other people's oxygen masks, which makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But that's kind of the difference that I see. So that's why I lean more left, because I believe in the empathy and compassion
Mm-hmm.
more than, because I believe we're probably in a point in time where we have the ability to be compassionate and empathetical because of what we've done with technology and healthcare and modern science and all these expenditures that we can share with. But there needs to be a balance, like we're saying, like the Young Turks and the Alex Jones. I'm glad they're both there and not just one or the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but then what happens if Alex Jones is kicked off YouTube?
See, and that's where it gets fucked.
Yeah, because then it's like,
because you never know.
because then he just, I don't know, he goes on.
Because then everyone starts believing the Young Turks, and everyone is thinking that we should just give all our shit away, and then all of a sudden you're starving and you're dead.
Well, maybe not even that. It's just, you could even say like, then Alex Jones goes on to another media platform, like I was trying to say earlier. I don't know the exact name. I think it's called Mine or something, but there's other like similar to YouTube platforms that are now being started. And I would say it has a lot to do with the alt-right base. Like I'd say they're probably the ones starting it, because they recognize their income is being threatened because they have different views.
I'd just be so interested to like hang out with these guys. Not even like do a Joe Rogan podcast. Do you watch that Alex Jones Joe Rogan podcast?
Yeah, the one. Which one? The one where he smokes weed?
Yeah,
that one. Yeah.
You know, I just test it for the kids here. You know, and just check that George Soros isn't fucking with the weed.
Yeah.
Fucking George Soros. Yeah, it's a crazy time we live in. But and there's also, I'm sure there's a majority of the people who are listening to this right now who just don't give a fuck.
Yeah, that's another thing. I wonder how many people are just
Coasting.
Yeah, they
They're
don't.
coasting.
None of this stuff is affecting their daily life.
And I agree with the point you made the other day. I don't know who was here, Jacob or Troy. I don't know, but you made the point of, do you think it's irresponsible not to think about this kind of stuff? It's not even politics. It's just like issues that we need to come together to solve because we don't trust just one person making the decisions.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with that. So who inspired that thought?
I would say it goes back to, I don't know his name and I wish I did, the Indian CEO from Facebook, and like how we need to have discussion and real social discourse, because Facebook for the most part has not extracted, but like it's excluded a lot of people from social discourse because of the ability to connect with like-minded people rather than just people in your vicinity. Because I think it's less likely you'll run into someone who shares the exact political beliefs on the street than you would online, right? You know what I mean? It's easy to find someone who's similarly minded politically online than it is on the street or in your neighborhood or in your family.
Is that because it's anonymous? And it's like, you can't just run out and be like, I support the KKK.
Well, I think
I'm using a southern accent just for dramatization. No, it's not a fucking everybody relax. But you wouldn't say that on the street, right? But you will totally be okay with commenting that anonymously on a YouTube page.
Well, and even if it's not anonymous, if you're talking within a group that's all thinking like you, yeah, exactly. You're more comfortable, but you're not going to have a meaningful discussion. Like, you'll just say, oh yeah, kick out the immigrants. Oh yeah, kick out the immigrants. Oh yeah, we should kick out the immigrants.
You know what? Build a wall too.
Whereas like if Buddy were to go say that to maybe his neighbor or his family member, hey, I have a problem with, well, why do you have that problem? See, there might be a discussion rather than yes. Okay, next topic, yes.
Yeah. But I feel like that's so much rarer than we think too, though.
I don't know.
I feel like there's so many people who, because even growing up, I remember my aunt said to me, she's like, there's 3 things you don't discuss: politics, sex, and money.
Yeah.
And it's like, why? Why? Don't you think those are important topics to discuss?
Yeah, it's sort of like you don't talk to people who you're not close with about those topics.
Yeah, I guess so. But even people in your family, if you sit down for a big family dinner, you're not gonna, if someone says something that's gonna trigger the emotions in so many people, you're not gonna do it.
Yeah, you might
even
not.
within your family, and that's your family.
Yeah, and because there's like social repercussions.
Yeah,
and maybe that's like a parental like protection there. Like it's like saying, look here, Evan, we want people to like you, so don't do these things.
Yeah, true.
And if you're worried about people liking you, then I guess it's good. But
yeah, I guess so. If you're worried, and that's something that my family definitely is involved in, the superficial.
Well, all families are like that, right?
Yeah,
and to some degree.
Well, especially within our society, especially I didn't grow up in the 80s or the 90s or like the 70s, but I'm sure it was very different than what we are today.
Yeah.
Everyone wanted their white picket fence, and I don't think it's like that much anymore.
Yeah.
It's a different social environment, and we'll see what happens. What do you think about the Vladimir Putin?
The election?
He won, man. He's the fucking ultimate ruler.
Yeah, I don't know. I had a professor in first year who said that he was involved, or he knew someone who was running like an NGO to get a feel for like how many people actually, like a percentage of how many people supported him.
Wouldn't it be impossible? Yeah,
it might be, but the professor was like very adamant about the validity of these NGOs and like the people who were saying that he has like 70 to 80% approval, and that was in 2015.
But is that relevant? Even if it's valid that he has 70 to 80% approval, if you did the same NGO in North Korea, what would they would probably be even higher than that. And that's not valid because he's a dictator, and he has a tyrannical power over these people who don't have a choice whether they like him or not, and they're gonna lie because it relies on their safety.
Yeah, well, even our own prime minister has admitted that like he would favor an authoritarian rule if he was in power, because it makes things much more effective. There's no, like, things are less bureaucratic, things are quicker, you don't get bogged down by like opposing opinions, and so it's much more effective as a leader to have an authoritarian regime.
But and maybe to a certain extent, if that authoritarian regime reigned supreme for a long time, right? But you look at the United States, and if you have 8 years a Democrat, 8 years a Republican, it's just they're not moving because they put whatever the Democrat believes to please voters or whatever their campaign promised. And then you have, say, Donald Trump comes in as a Republican after Obama and just rolls back all of Obama era regulations.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you have the ability to do that, you're not really going anywhere.
Yep.
You're just staying in the same place, because as soon as you go somewhere, the next person that comes in that's going to have different views than you is going to tear all that shit away.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess there's just like too much money involved, because if we remove some of the money that's involved, maybe people would have more of a transparent view of like the American politics. Because when these things happen, when like they roll back all these, like, say you agree with some of the Obama administration policies, if there is less like propaganda and less interest in like Republican donors putting money into like certain senators or whatever, people might be more outraged, and they might be less like docile when things get reversed. So there might be, so that's what I'm trying to get at. Like, democracy is a bit like hindered right now because of how much money there is, because people aren't as active maybe as they should be.
Oh, 100%. There was this crazy thing. I think Bernie Sanders said it, but he's like, it was illegal like 30 years ago to put in more than $70,000. I think is the super PAC max was like $70,000. You're allowed to donate to a certain party or a certain member of Congress or a member of Parliament in Canada. It's different in Canada. It's way different. We live in a much less money. It's still money oriented, obviously, because we're capitalistic, but. And now you have like the Koch brothers, or I don't know who else. Who's another big donor? There are a bunch. NRA, like all these huge donors that donate hundreds of millions, not $70,000, like hundreds of millions, almost billions of dollars to certain members of Parliament. And these are investments. People need to look at these are investments. And when I make an investment, when I put my money into my weed stocks that Jacob told me I get rich,
give me that return.
But I want a return of money.
Give me that return.
Yeah, I need a return of money. That's the only reason I'm doing that, because I want more money out of it. And I believe that me putting my money in there will make me more money. So there's no way anybody would put $800 million into a campaign without understanding that they will get that return on their investment. Doesn't make any sense. It can't work that way.
And it's been like that for a while. It's just, I guess, the scale, because they got rid of the limit, like you said, but there was still like interest groups in like the 19th century and the 20th century in the United States, like people who owned railroads, people who owned like lumber mills. They still had like political power because they had money to donate.
Rockefeller.
Yeah, exactly. Oil companies, yeah, they didn't. But now the scale,
banks,
I guess, and the limit is not. Something needs to be done, but like, will it happen?
Maybe
no.
It's just more transparent now.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Why?
Well, is it more transparent? Like, do people know how much money is going in?
I mean, we do. There's an ability to know.
Yeah, you might be able to know.
There's an ability to know, but back in the 1920s or whenever the Great Depression was, no one had any idea what these banks were doing.
Yeah.
When they were like giving out loans so people can put it in the stock market and knowing that they won't get that money back. So they're going to be able to charge interest on the loans. So it's like I think it's much more transparent as we learn from history, which hopefully we will.
Yeah. So what'd you do over the past weekend? Did you get drunk?
No, I had Daquan. Have you ever met Daquan?
Might have. No,
Funny,
I don't think so.
funny dude. Jacob, Christian, Maddie. We were all just sitting here. We drank a couple beers. We played Super Smash Bros. And then they all left, and they were gonna go to this shitty party. And I was like, man, no, I don't want to. And then was gonna go later, but then I ate a poutine and I smoked a little weed. And it just went downhill from there. I just laid in bed. I went to bed at like 9 in the morning, or 9 p.m.
So you didn't
St. Patrick's
celebrate St. Patrick's Day?
No,
And
barely.
you know,
I
there's
had
like
a couple beers.
there's like an irony towards like drinking on St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, you were telling me.
Yeah, because it's during the Catholic Lenten, so like they're not supposed to drink.
So what's the Catholic Lenten?
I guess it's just you're supposed to abstain from like drinking and
Then why does everybody
sinful
get
activities.
fucking hammered, bro?
Because people in North America need an excuse to get drunk.
Jesus Christ. No, we don't. We already get drunk every Friday and Saturday, dude.
Yeah.
We definitely don't. What about the cultural appropriation?
I guess there is some cultural appropriation.
Cultural appropriation. I'm culturally appropriating right now.
Yeah, is it appropriation or is it like imitation? Is it like mimicry?
Same thing.
Well,
it's
like
synonymous.
Kind of, but like there's a subtle difference because I think appropriation has like a negative connotation.
It does have a negative connotation just because there's a bunch of pussies out here.
Yo, so when you're talking to someone
Mm-hmm.
and you want them to like you, it's shown that like if you mimic their body language
Mm-hmm.
and their speech patterns, they'll more likely have an affinity towards you. Like they'll start to like you more.
Yeah.
So to me, that's how I sort of like it's like honoring. It's like mimicry. It's like I want to be like you. Why can't I be? I'm gonna try and be like you. It's not always negative.
It's such a ridiculous concept. I can't even handle the ridiculous concept that is cultural appropriation.
Okay, but what about when it's, say, I like to write every day and it's considered cool when I write every day,
Yeah.
but say there's a marginalized individual and he likes to write every day and people of my class say, oh, it's gross that he writes every day. And then I come along, oh, Luke's writing that's cool. Look what Luke's doing. You see what I mean? It's when there's like a judgment based on someone else who's marginalized. So,
But that's still fucking ridiculous.
like the idea of bougie was only cool when like white
Bougie.
people started doing, like, you
My
know what I
bitch
mean?
is
Like,
bad and bougie.
yeah, like
Cooking the dope with the Uzi.
yeah, it's
Shit's
when
hard, bro.
people make a judgment of like who's allowed to make it popular and like when in what context is it popular. That's when I get like I understand people get offended, but
But what is that? That's gentrification, isn't it?
gentrification,
Isn't
yeah,
that
that's a
more
better way to
gentrification than cultural appropriation?
yeah, and that's the problem. That's what people take an issue with is like, oh, it's only cool when like rich people do it, or like how come it wasn't okay when like these people were doing it? Why didn't you appreciate it then? Like, well, I guess you have to understand the dynamics. Sorry, it's like that, but it's unfortunate. But that's kind of the way the world is.
The brilliant idiots were having a conversation about this. A good podcast by Charlemagne the God, that crazy bastard. But they were talking about how it's ridiculous. I if I want to make rap music, I should be able to do it. But do you think that you need to pay homage? Do you think that there needs to be like some credit given where it's due if you are going to participate, or is it like, fuck it, who cares?
Not necessarily, but if you want to, I mean, like, all credit to you. But I think a problem comes when, like, say, like, Drake. So Drake, for example, takes a lot of heat, or he used to, I don't know if he does anymore, for, like, not being authentic.
Mm-hmm.
So with Eminem,
Mm-hmm.
he never tries to, like,
True.
act like he's a gangbanger. He, like, has, like, a psychotic tone in some of his music. Like, oh, I'm going to do some crazy shit, or I'm going to beat my girlfriend or whatever, like
do crazy shit.
Yeah, just crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But he never acts like he's part of like the Brooklyn ghetto or something. Like he's authentic.
Yeah.
And because of that, he's allowed to have this position as a rapper, or it's accepted that he's a rapper because he doesn't put on this image that he's some sort of like thing that he's not. Whereas Drake,
East side of your ting.
yes.
Scarborough ting.
See, and that's exactly with Drake. It's like he's a hype man. He just rides whatever wave is going, and it's inauthentic.
But didn't stop him from being successful.
No, but he takes a lot of heat for it sometimes.
Fuck the heat, man. Haters don't get paper.
Haters don't get favored, but like there's a moral problem there. That's all I'm saying. And that's sort of like the appropriation.
Is there though?
He's not patois. Like patois is not his thing. He just ride the wave.
But
It's a
is
hype
there
man.
a moral problem? I guess it goes to ends justify the means.
Well, what if I came home? What if I walked in here one day and I just started acting like I was taking real issues with like immigration problems, and I was saying like, look, I'm oppressed and I'm representing for this issue, and this is who I am now. I think you'd probably have a problem with that. You say like, what the hell, man? What are you doing?
I'd be like,
That's not you.
yeah, you're in someone else's. I guess so.
And then it becomes worse when you start making money off of it.
Yeah, I guess so. But he makes great music.
He does make good music. It's just like it's inauthentic sometimes, and I think most people have recognized that.
Most people have recognized it, but he still makes great music.
Definitely. Yeah.
What? You haven't listened to that new XX Tentacion album?
I don't listen to that shit.
Bro, it's so good. It's not so good. I'm overhyping it.
He's got like a mellow, like kind of like melancholy, like kind of tone. You know?
I like
Kinda-
dark music,
kinda
bro.
dark, yeah.
I like dark music. I'm a fan when he says suicide. I don't know, man. I just I feel it. I'm like, oh, that's some real feelings.
Gets your neurons going.
Yeah, it does. And I was like, oh man, you're sad. I appreciate that.
Oh.
But he brutally beat his girlfriend.
Yeah, it's fucked.
So how he makes great music, but he's a piece of shit. So do we draw that line? That's more.
No.
That's even more of a moral issue than Drake's inauthenticity.
Right. Well, he is authentic though. If you're saying like he actually is this kind of dark person, I guess he's still authentic, and he makes good music. So like, there's no real problem unless you like.
You're
actually
buddies with him.
Yeah. Well, or if you like have experience like to some of the dreadful things he's done, like maybe you find it like morally apprehensible or whatever because you've experienced something similar.
Yeah.
But if not, and you just choose to like his music for the music itself, I don't really have a problem with that, because the morality of someone really shouldn't affect the product they make as long as they're effective, in my opinion.
Yeah, but then doesn't that lead down a dark road of little children in sweatshops sniffing in glue as they're making $400 shoes for like 25 cents an hour?
No, that's not really like the morality. That's like the condition, I would say. Like what I mean by morality, so say if I write a really good paper, and it's covering an issue like why cats purring has a healing effect on people. The fact that I maybe have a really, hypothetically, like I have a really disgusting view towards children, or like I hate children or something.
Yeah.
That moral stance that I have really doesn't matter in the like my morals don't really matter in the context of what I've produced. As long as it's effective and somehow valuable.
True. I see that.
But that's like a kind of a realist approach, so.
Yeah, and maybe that's kind of a social justice warrior way to think of like, it's a fucking hard topic because domestic abuse is nothing. It's probably some of the most cowardice shit you could ever do, because it's like a manipulation thing more than just like fighting somebody on the street, right?
Do you think there's different rules for engagement between men and between men and women?
Different rules of engagement?
Yeah.
Like physical engagement?
Physical, verbal, emotional.
I think so. Depends what kind of relationship you have with those people.
Okay.
Like if you're in the street and you're fighting with someone because you're both drunk, and if it's a chick and she's screaming at you and yelling at you, you're hopefully not going to go and fight her, because there's a clear difference between the muscle mass of a male and a female. So I think that should be a difference. And if it's a dude and you scream at you, I still shouldn't think you should fight each other, but it's more of a fair fight than if you were to fight the chick.
Yeah.
But also it's like, it depends on the relationship you have with the person.
I don't know. I think like personally, I know when I've been like in a relationship with someone, or even like with my sisters too, when I cross a line, I feel like a coward. Like say if you're like horsing around, like you're tickling or whatever, or like,
and you just punch them in the face.
Like you do you and maybe
you pull your knife out. You're like, bitch.
Or like you accidentally like hit a soft spot or something, and like it hurts, and you just wow, I feel like a pussy.
Yeah, you feel bad.
I get that, and I don't know. I guess some people take issue with like the fact that like men are aggressive and like we have these tendencies towards violence.
Definitely are more aggressive,
and we have to treat women differently. Is that a problem that we treat women differently?
It depends on what difference, and maybe there would be a different answer if we asked Tori. But I think, you know what I mean? Like, but
so because there's no women here, we can't really.
Well, who knows what they would think? I don't know. I think Tori would think more on our side that there should be, because there are physical realities that need to be added to the equation.
So like men have more upper body strength.
Men have more strength in general. I guess women's legs could fucking just kill you, eh? They could kick you like a horse.
There was an article I read about Jordan Peterson and how he outlined that when men talk, there's always the threat of physical violence if things go too far.
Yeah.
And with women, you can't always, it can't reach that level because there's that dynamic of power and physical strength between men and women. So do you think it's like problematic to say that, I can't fully engage with women because I can't reach that there's no threat of physical violence? Is that something that should always be a precursor to a discussion, like a meaningful discussion?
What do you mean, like I can't fully engage?
Yeah, so that's what Jordan Peterson was saying, that there's someone who's calling him a Nazi, and like they were parading his neighborhood with like posters of him saying like this neo-Nazi lives in your neighborhood.
What do you think is like going through that person's mind?
They're just trying to discredit him, I think. But something's fucked up, pathological.
Like, how do you get so obsessive about one person and the obsession of like doing God's work?
I don't know. But I do know I have to piss, so
okay, go for it. Yeah, anyway, about women.
Yeah, so
I love women, man. They're beautiful creatures.
I guess the problem I was trying to outline was like there's a difference in engagement between men and men and women. And
there should be, I believe.
There should be, but so what Jordan Peterson said was, I can't reach the level of engagement with this woman that I wish I could if she were a man. You know what I mean? Like he's saying, like I wish I could hit her, basically.
Oh, okay.
Right? Because he's saying the pretext is, between men and men, when a conversation goes too far, it has the potential to reach a physical, like there could be a physical engagement.
Yeah. If you're losing the argument,
or if someone says like there's a personal insult, or like someone goes too far or whatever, you push a shove and then someone gets smacked.
It's just downhill from there.
Yeah. So with women, he's saying it can't reach that because of the physical difference. And then he goes on to say it can't reach the level that I think I would like it to.
See, that's I don't know. Did he specifically reference violence?
Yes.
Okay, so
not like in the case of the women, but when he was describing the men dynamic, but do you think
why does he want it to go there?
Because the person is like defaming him, like they're slander.
It's whatever. You don't need to. Gangsters move in silence, Jordan Peterson. Like, chill, my dude.
Yeah. The thing is, I don't think he's actually saying he would like to hit her. I think he's saying that like because the rules of engagement are different.
Yeah.
It doesn't reach a level. There's no like sense of. I would say like what he's trying to say is like there's no precursor that this could reach physical violence, and because there's that precursor does not exist there.
Yeah.
The dynamic is different, and so perhaps what he's alluding to is like a tyrannical woman in this situation who's taking advantage of the fact that you can't engage with her on the same level you could with a man.
Yeah, well, it's different. It's definitely different. I think about like sexual assault and like sexual and maybe not sexual assault, maybe that's too far, but sexual objectification. It's like if you see a super hot chick, you you can't jokingly just like grab her ass, or like you can't like do that sort of stuff, because there's like a threat of danger. Like there's sort of a level of danger if a big man, if some 6'4", 210-pound dude grabs like some 5'4", less under 100-pound chick. There's a sense of danger there. But a chick could do that to a dude, and there's no sense of danger. So there's kind of, it's the double standard.
There still could be though. Like if you,
but realistically though, not really. Not in the same equivalency as a fucking Viking. Like,
yeah. So there would be like less physical damage, but
Yeah.
like if you have a particularly sensitive dude and gets taken advantage of, like
don't be so
there's
sensitive,
there's
you
an
little
emotional damage
There
there.
definitely is. Definitely could be emotional damage if, but in our society we're like, man up, my dude.
Yeah, we don't value that.
Yeah, we don't really care about that shit, because it's like, look at you. But even emotionally, yes, there could be damage. I agree with that, but I wouldn't understand it. I would understand it. I would feel uncomfortable if, she was super unattractive.
Okay.
You know what I mean? If she was an attractive chick and she did that to me, it'd be a different. This is all the nuance to the situation. But even if like I'm like 6'1.5", if like some 5'3" chick came up to me, less than 100 pounds, and she even put a gun to my brain and was like, "I'm gonna rape you," I'd be like, I'd still feel like I probably have the upper hand because I can just take it away from her.
Okay.
You know what I mean? There's like, it's still a level. Obviously, you're in threat.
Yeah, there's like a power dynamic.
Yeah, but there's no way that a woman could do that if a dude did that to her.
Yeah, I don't know. For whatever reason, I was stuck on that point about Jordan Peterson, because there was someone who like Nathan J. Robinson wrote an article about him, and he kind of strawmans him by saying, because Jordan Peterson outlines this precursor of men and men engagement, he's saying that he wishes that men and women had the same rules of engagement, which he was not saying. So there's a straw man argument there, and people took it as, oh, well, Jordan Peterson wants to hit women, or he's like aggressive towards women. Right? But I think of like, I think of a playground scenario, like how kids used to say, oh, you can't hit a girl if she hits you. You can only hit her after like
3 times.
Yeah, she hits you 3 times. You can hit her back. To me, that's what I sort of think of. And then I think of like times where I might have been like bullied, or I might have been harassed by women, even in high school. Like it happens, right? Bitches are crazy.
Yeah.
But I don't think even then I want the rules of engagement to be the same, because maybe I'm like verbally skilled and I was able to talk shit back, which I think is the case.
Yeah.
But for a dude who's like emotionally unstable and not verbally skilled, what happens, right? Like probably wants to get physical.
Yeah, you're going to get hit. Well, that's a good point, because it's like women should not feel safe hitting a dude. In no shape or form, no woman should feel safe hitting a dude. No matter what's going to happen, I am most likely not going to hit a chick back, right? Like no matter what, unless she's like fucking 6'4" and she's on like the national wrestling team, and like I might have to throw a few punches.
Probably get your ass kicked.
I probably would get my ass kicked, so I'd resort to last measures. But women should not believe that they're safe, because we don't know how other dudes are going to react. If you hit someone, expect to get hit back.
Yeah. Yeah, we kind of got to the point of like, you shouldn't feel safe hitting anyone.
Yeah, and I don't agree with Jordan Peterson saying that, just purely because there's two ways to solve an argument, or solve. It's either through words or through violence. And it's like, which route are you going to take? And do you really want to pick the violence? And it's like, no, in no situation, I don't think you want to pick that.
Yeah, I think what he's saying is that like you shouldn't use that option of violence, but you should always be prepared to have that option, which is like, it's again like a realist stance. It's like when North Korea says, we will not get rid of the nuclear option.
Mm-hmm.
It's because as soon as you do that, it allows someone to be tyrannical over
Mm-hmm.
you, which is what he's saying. Between men and women, there is the opportunity for a tyrannical power dynamic because the option of physical violence is not there.
Yeah, see, I agree with that, but in my personal opinion, I don't know if it's a very realistic
No, it's not.
a very realistic thought at this point, which is kind of what I believe in Jordan Peterson sometimes. You know what I mean? He doesn't pander, but he says these things and he over exaggerates certain situations in order to create the conversation. I think it's important to create the conversation, but there's other ways you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be hyperbolic about every little nuance.
Yep.
So it's different. I think so. I think it'll most likely happen. Do you see that Rick and Morty episode?
I don't watch Rick and Morty.
Fucking Rick and Morty episode. There's like at the end of it, they just got a bunch of dudes with their dicks on suction cups, and they're just getting the semen sucked out of their cocks. And then women are just above the ground, and they're just it's a woman's world. And it's like maybe that'll happen. I don't doubt it. You know what I mean? It's a possibility.
Like what? 1 out of 1,000?
Yeah, very small.
Yeah.
Very small right now, but you never know.
Yeah.
You never know what could happen.
Yeah, that's true.
I was
So yeah, basically I was triggered by that article, and because
Yeah.
someone posted it on my Facebook feed, and I was like, "You're straw manning him." He's just saying
what's
like,
explain
so straw man
manning.
is when like, so I say Canada takes a lot of immigrants. I make that statement, and then the counterpoint to that is, "Oh, Luke just said that Canada takes too many immigrants."
True.
Do you see the difference?
Yeah.
So you can misconstrue the argument in order to make it easier. You build, so it's like you're creating a straw man, a man made out of straw,
Mm-hmm.
which is not me, and then you're
Mhm.
saying that's me.
True.
So it's like you're making a separate argument,
Yeah.
which is not actually what's been stated, and then defeating that argument instead of the actual thing that's been said,
Mm-hmm.
which is what people tend to do when they engage in Jordan Peterson's work. And I think
Mhm.
it comes from preconceived notions, because maybe they see like, oh, Jordan Peterson destroys this talk host, or like
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Peterson like destroys SJWs.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's sort of like unsettling for a lot of people. Or maybe he's talking about gender dynamics, or like whatever his opinion on is, like
Mhm.
non-binary individuals or whatever. They see that, and then because they have that preconceived notion, they don't take his actually meaningful work seriously. And so they strawman him because they already have an outcome in their head imagined, and so they have to build up these straw men to get to that position, because they're not taking the argument at hand seriously. They're not taking his real argument seriously. They're just making up this straw man based on preconceived notions.
It's kind of like what Cenk and
Sam
fucking-
Harris.
Cenk and Sam Harris, but I was thinking Cenk and Alex Jones do to each other,
Yeah, kind of.
right? Like just the different beliefs they misconstrued and sort of mold others' points in a certain way to feed the bias of their demographic.
Yeah, have you seen the videos about the Sam Harris and Cenk battle?
I've seen the interview. I forget it though.
Yeah.
I forget. It was a long time ago.
But then Cenk like doubles down, and he tries to like keep saying this is what Sam Harris said,
Yeah.
and it's a straw man. He just
Yeah.
keeps misconstruing the argument, and basically like the idea is like, oh, he's taking it out of context. That's what Sam Harris says.
Yeah.
And that's not actually what's happening. It's just a straw man. He's just misconstruing the argument and
Yeah.
then saying this is what he said. It's not actually what he said.
That's what happens when you don't have a very good argument.
Well, that's what happens when you argue from an ideological standpoint. It's like you can't actually reasonably have a discussion, because this ideology kicks in and provides you an answer, which is not always rational.
Yeah. So what? How do you even have the conversation then?
Between Cenk and Sam Harris?
Just have the conversation in general. Let's see. I was writing the second blog for the can opener. Everyone go read the blogs of the can opener. We're gonna have some fucking triggering shit going on, and it's like, how do we have the conversation without having an ideological? How do we force people to I guess you can't even force people. How do you tell people to understand that you need to be able to question yourself?
Well,
Rather than because it's fucking fun yelling at each other.
I don't know. I think a lot of people have like a lack of meaning, and so
True.
they take up issues in order to fulfill that empty space.
Yeah.
And when people have an empty space, that's when ideology comes in
Mhm.
and fills up this sort of lack of drive or lack of like consciousness. And it could be that like people are young, like, well,
Yeah.
people in our context are young.
But even I even think the people who are young are less actively involved in that than the older people.
Yeah,
And I agree with the empty space, this chasm that we have in our, well, like you said, consciousness. It's this thing that we constantly feel like we need to be filled.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you'll ever fill it? Like, do you think that will ever be filled, or do you think it's just a constant attempt at feeling full? And people go through different phases in their life, filling it with maybe superficial stuff and filling it with not the right stuff. Like the same hole can be filled with heroin if you're a heroin addict, right? Or the same hole can be filled with meditation if you're a monk.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I think that leads to sort of like, do we have agency, and like, do we have free will? Do we have the do we have the ability to determine what is meaningful to us, or is meaning sort of something that is like constructed by our social like situation, like our circumstance?
It was trippy, man. So I was listening to something, I don't know what it was. I forget. But they were talking about how human consciousness and life is like just a testing ground and sort of a recruitment process to becoming gods within different dimensions. Super trippy, but that was Logic's 2 albums ago. That was Logic's concept. Is Neil deGrasse Tyson was God, and Logic was this dude who'd live a different life, and he would be rebirthed or resurrected into a different life. So you have to live all the lives possible before you can become this ultimate complex that is one day a god. So when I die, I'm gonna live, it's a reoccurring loop. It's not linear. It's like we just keep reliving the same loop. So when I die, I'm gonna be some rich asshole who runs into the barrier reef with his yacht, and then the next life after that, I'm gonna be some Syrian refugee who has to deal with that life. And then once all the possibilities of lives are done, that's when I become godlike, and I create this balanced ecosystem that is a dimension or is a universe once you've experienced it all.
Yeah, so like you have to beat each level with each character.
But it's kind of something that a lot of people talk about, that like being reborn. It's like there's so many people who believe that they were like they've
past
lived
life experience.
but But I've heard you talk about that shit too. Like and honestly, and my dad, super conservative, not very like open-minded, very not like spiritual, I guess. And he's like, who knows, maybe you're from like another past life, like you've already experienced this.
Yeah, so you wouldn't expect your dad to say that?
No.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he has some.
Yeah, I get what you're trying to say.
He's a human being.
He's like a bit more grounded in like this world.
Yes, he doesn't really reach beyond his own circle. But I don't know why we were talking about that, but it was an interesting concept that I thought of. And it's like, who knows? And the creator or whatever that is, however we view it now, we view it as, I think, a coder because it's like
people, yeah.
who knows?
Yeah,
It's trippy.
You have to beat each level with each character before you move on to the.
Well, because you need to understand
stage.
every single perspective, and that's what God does, right? You can't be a god by being a selfish douchebag, and you can't be a god by being a poor boy.
Yeah, well, I guess in some scripture, like we're said that we're made in the image of God, and that like God became man so that man could become God. That's like that's in scripture.
God became man, so man.
That's
so
what.
Man.
So Jesus, the incarnation of Jesus Christ was God incarnated as man. So the Son of God is God incarnated as man.
Yeah.
So God became man.
Yeah.
Teaches the way of life, supposedly from a Christian point of view,
Mm-hmm.
so that man can become God, or man can ascend, or go to heaven, or reach a higher state of being.
Yeah. I really think the only way to reach a higher state of being is being involved in multiple perspectives.
Yep.
And understanding different timelines and different stories and different.
Well, yeah, it's all about recognizing like what I think of right now is the idea of the microbiome, and that's just because that's what I've been primed for the last like 3 months. All I've been reading about, so I've been primed for this idea. But the idea that like these microscopic bacteria play a huge role in everything that goes inside your body. Yeah. And then if you extrapolate that, I know like you can't always generalize for rules, but if you extrapolate the fact that the bacteria controls a lot of what goes on in your body in terms of like immune system and like digestion, you extrapolate that, humans as a microscopic cog in the inner workings of what this planet is.
Yeah. I was just thinking about that before you even said it.
Yeah. You extrapolate, we're like this microcosm, this small piece of a greater chain of being, or this greater thing that all works together. And
it's like we are that ecosystem.
The ecosystem.
And look at what we can do. It doesn't seem, if you look at the earth from afar, you won't see us. You know what I mean? If you look at your stomach from afar, you won't see the little bacteria running around. But look at the damage unhealthy bacteria can cause the earth. It's not noticeable until you dive deep down and understand what's going on. Like pollution, all the bullshit. We are causing so much harm because we are a cancer. I think we're a cancer.
Well, see, and that's where I think it's tricky because so that book report I had to do a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a month ago.
Did you get it done, dude?
Yeah, I got it done.
Lit, bro.
I don't know how. Anyway,
Is your mark back?
Yeah, I haven't checked it.
It's a good call. That's what I used to do. Just never. Just like opening your bank account. Like, you just don't even want to look at it. Like, it's fine. I'll just spend the money and then we'll check in 2 weeks.
Yeah, but so Vandana Shiva, I think is her name. She was saying how like our diet reflects what we're doing to this planet. We're eating oil in a sense that like everything that we make, like this water bottle in front of me, costs so much oil to make, and I'm ingesting that oil metaphorically and physically, like literally, because when the oil goes into the production, it seeps in, like you could even say there's like microplastics in the water. So in some sense, I'm eating the oil, and she just like portrays the idea that we are like the microbiome, and because we are sick and we're eating foods that are making us sick, we're making the planet sick by extension, because it's like a virus. So when you get an imbalance in gut bacteria, it actually tricks your brain to feed that bad bacteria. So like you crave more shit food, and that's what's happening to us. We have this like unsustainable system where it just feeds itself because that's what's sustaining it. Is the destruction is sustaining it. And so on like a micro level, we're like bacteria, and then on a macro level, it's like humans are the bad bacteria of this planet at this point in time.
It just depends on what scope you want to look through, right? I just see like the different magnifying lenses flopping away. It's like you see the earth and then you go deeper and deeper and deeper, and then all of a sudden you're in this.
Yeah, but we can reverse damage to our own microbiome on a micro level, like taking probiotics, eating well, eating fermented foods, whatever, getting good sleep. if we can do that on a micro level, can we do it on a macro level to save the planet's balance in bacteria, or balance in like human production, or like what we're doing?
I
activity?
totally believe so. Because if we do, I think we can, because I don't think there's much difference between micro and macro thinking. It's all relative to perspective.
Yeah.
Right? So if we were a bacteria, if we were a single cell, we'd be thinking that just human perception was a macro of
the bacteria.
Of the bacteria's perception. So, but why are we not helping our gut microbiome?
Ideology,
and just because of the powers that be. The powers that be is McDonald's is one of the largest corporations in the entire world, and that does not help us. So, and on a macro level, quote unquote, why are we not changing what we're doing on a macro level to help the body that is the earth?
Yeah.
Is because of our ideology and because of the powers that be. ExxonMobil, all the billions and billions of
BP,
dollars are in oil, and these people,
Monsanto,
people who have that wealth, who amass that wealth, are not going to lose it because they want to change. Because they don't, there isn't a problem in their eyes. Either they ignore it, or there's who created the Las Vegas Sands? Sheldon Adelson. He said, there was an interview with him. I think I mentioned this before. And there was an interview with him and some woman. And she said, so what do you, because he's this big oil tycoon. And she said, what do you think about, like, what kind of lives your grandchildren are going to live? And I said, I don't care. Like, they don't exist right now. Like, that doesn't even formulate a thought in his brain. So it's like the powers that be. But explain, it's the ideology too, like you said.
Yeah, and it goes full circle here back to like identity politics. Would like corporations like McDonald's or ExxonMobil or like BP, would they rather us be fighting about racial differences, immigration policy, building a wall, or like gun rights? Would they rather us be fighting about that, or in
That's some Illuminati
or
shit,
like
bro.
2012 or in 2013 when there were mass protests against like Occupy Wall Street, or like Monsanto protests against them too? There were many in Canada at that time. What is more beneficial and what is the real issue here? I don't know, and I can't say what is a bigger issue for everyone, but personally I find like this identity politics game rather unproductive, and
it triggers a sort of a thought that comes from skepticism, saying, what are we truly being distracted by talking about these really superficial issues like abortion? Like, it's not like it doesn't mean anything, but they take up way too much of the space within the talking points of what we're focused on right now.
Yeah, exactly. Like, take like gun issues in the United States, for example. So that's a huge masquerade. Like, it's a foggy issue because people want to talk about like the AR-15 or like how many school shootings there are and like whatever, because it's an emotional issue, because we see the children on TV and we hear about like parents who've lost children. Obviously all that's terrible, but
there's a lot of flashing lights though.
Yeah, the issue gets misconstrued because there's more deaths by pistols, for example, in the United States, but yet we want to focus on banning the AR-15. And to me, there's an underlying like mechanism there of distraction. It's that like this CNN, what you see on CNN, they're not glorifying it, but in a way they are. They're just dramatizing it to get you not paying attention to serious issues. And that's why, like, I used to be really into like conspiracy theories and like sort of like 9/11 truth and stuff like this. But I realized
Tower 7.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I realize these are sort of just distractions in the same way that identity politics are distractions. It's the same thing. It's just getting you away from real issues.
But what is it? What is it? Do you think CNN is trying to distract us with the flashing lights, or are we just naturally distracted by the flashing lights? Are we doing this? Is the population upon is it the population's responsibility rather than the market makers? And I believe it is, because that book, You Are Not So Smart, or whatever, I remember he's saying, the consumers control the market.
Yeah,
the consumers control the market. The market makers don't control the market, no matter what you've been told. That is how it works. So it's like, are we... I totally think it is our responsibility, and it's kind of just the same as... There's no help in complaining. There's nothing, no matter what injustices you may face, like all you have to do is just try your hardest to make it better, rather than saying, oh, it's his fault, we're this way.
Or like it's like, or like school shootings are the biggest issue in the world, or like like see, and that's where I guess the problem comes, because people then can extrapolate and say, oh, well, like, you don't think school shootings are a big issue. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that, like, we have a tendency to focus on these, like, blips of catastrophe when, like, we don't question the underlying ideology, we don't question the underlying systematic problems. And then, because of ideology, we make up problems that maybe aren't always as bad as they seem.
And maybe we're looking at it with a magnifying glass instead of looking at the whole picture. But there are... I definitely agree with you. It's not glorified, but the school shooting thing is... It's flashing lights, and it's so sad that, like, these kids are killed. But are we... What happens in Syria when someone drops a drone strike? There's way more kids killed there than ever have been killed in mass shootings in schools. So it's... If we're purely talking about the death and destruction of people, which one is... How do we scale the issues?
Yeah, I think maybe people are just too docile, because I think when I think of like the Syrian war, I've read like this book by Noam Chomsky. I don't particularly like him, but
who is he?
He's like a left-wing like anarchist kind of.
Yeah.
And I guess he was involved in like a lot of like civil rights movements, and like
he's fighting for the people.
Yeah, he's an intelligent person, but it's a good book. But he wrote how people were like more socially involved during protesting Vietnam than they were about like the war in Iraq or like the war in Syria. Like, are people just so docile they don't care? Like, they don't have
like now?
Yeah, the people like they don't have the awareness, or is it because we have all these external factors like Facebook,
all the ability to propagandize issues?
Yeah, and people are sick, and like we don't talk to each other anymore. We don't have this discussion. Like, how?
I think people are just doing less acid, bro. Think about all the
that
hippies.
Might be it.
Think about all the hippies back in the day. They were the ones holding signs. The flower children. That's what they're called, right?
Yep.
The flower children. It was a different time. They were dangerous. I don't know. That's obviously a joke, but you never know. Maybe if everyone did hallucinogenics once in their life, maybe things would change.
Do drugs safely, kids.
Yeah, I'm not condoning drugs. Yeah, sorry,
check out Psyched Substance on YouTube.
Yeah,
Psyched Substance. Yeah, check them out.
Yeah, don't. I think living a sober life is probably the best life to. But don't be afraid to explore. Don't be and as long as you do it safely.
Yep.
But I agree. But it's just a different time in the United States. Were they less consumer centric back then? Because I think they're way more branded now. Think about how many more brands there are within the United States than there were even 40 years ago.
Yeah, like, I guess, like, the neoliberal takeoff hadn't happened. Like, the economy wasn't as big, and, like, corporations weren't as big. Because that's what happened in, like, the 80s and, like, the late 70s. Like, we gave huge trust in the market and the economy and in corporations. We said, like, these things are what going to make the world a better place. And it was like trickle down economics was based. That was those decades were the decades of trickle down economics. Yeah. Just giving money to the top. Yeah, exactly. Ronald Reagan, Thatcher, and letting shit diffuse from the top to the, and so maybe that's what happened. The top just got so
out of fucking control.
Yeah, and like obviously like systems only work in the context which they're intended for.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the context have changed, which is why people are so critical of like neoliberalism now.
Yeah.
People are so critical of like trickle down economics
Yeah.
and like corporations having freelancing around the world.
Yeah.
There needs to be a system adjustment, and maybe it'll happen. But again, I question our fate because of how docile people are.
Yeah. And how afraid people are of change.
Yeah.
And how much we're aware of change now. So there's so much more outcry. And everybody has a voice. Everybody, like me and you, we can sit here on our podcast and we can just talk shit about whatever the fuck we want to say. And I can put it on Google AdWords, $200, and I could get however many people I want to listen to this.
Yep.
It's scary. But before the 70s, wasn't the U.S. tax rate like ridiculously high? Wasn't it like a 90% tax rate among the wealthy?
I'm not sure.
USA tax rate
70s.
Let's go 60s. Right before that.
I know it was super high during like World War II and the period after, but
The 60s. The 1960 top federal tax rate on regular income was 91%, while the rate on capital gains was 25%. And that's goes to the point that you were saying, is like we started around that time, 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, that 20-year era.
Mm-hmm.
That's when we started having these faith in these corporations.
Yep.
And started having, and then it flipped.
Yep. And we haven't adjusted, I think, well enough. And maybe like this like surgence of strongman politics and like this reactionary wave across the world is the last stand before a huge shift.
Yeah. Well,
that's what I think.
I think so too. And I think we were having this conversation before.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many conversations. But
the neurons are firing.
But he said that Donald Trump, I was on a Sam Harris podcast. I forget who the guest was, but he said Donald Trump might just be the best thing that ever happened to liberals because he is that
wake up call.
He is the wake up call, and he is the thing that's gonna make you flip the pancake. It's fucking burning.
Yep.
And if we got a Hillary Clinton right now in 8 years, what kind of Donald Trump would it have been? Would it have been Donald Trump, or would it have been Adolf Hitler 2.0, my dude?
Yeah. Because maybe like you're just suppressing this like burning
even more for another 8 years. What happens in those 8 years when those 16-year-olds who are like sort of like on the edge and there, but then once they hit 24 and they're really radicalized in their own ideas, whichever way they may lean,
mm-hmm.
it could be even a harder hit to everybody.
Yeah, I remember I was sitting waiting for the train in Oshawa with my dad.
Yeah.
And the radio was on, like Donald Trump was going on about something, or it was like CBC. They're talking about Donald Trump, and he said, like, "What do you think about elections? Like, do you think he has a chance?"
Yeah.
And I said, "You know what? At first, I thought it was going to be some dynasty battle. I thought it would be Bush and Clinton, but now I'm thinking maybe Donald Trump is exactly what they need." And he's kind of like slowly turned to me. He's like, "What?" He's like, "You really think that?" It's like, yeah, I think he's exactly what they need, as in what he represents, to me, is like a last stand before like a huge shift. And if it'll happen, I don't know. Maybe I'm like in fantasy world, but to me, it was like something that was necessary. It's just unfortunate that the character and like the morality of the man who's filling that spot happens to be Donald Trump. Like, it's unfortunate that's who it is, but the archetype or the figure that he represents to me is like in some way essential. And I'm not saying that everything that Donald Trump does is good. I'm just saying there's something essential about what he represents.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it represents like a shift, like
and
a
it could
change.
have been way worse.
Yeah, and it's not even like a huge change. It's like a mild shift.
It could have been way worse. It could have been even just thinking about the other Republican candidates that were going against him throughout the campaigns, and like Ted Cruz was saying, "What are you going to do about Syria?" And he's like, "Carpet bomb them." He literally said that. That's carpet bombing innocent people is way worse than building a wall. Building a wall is fucking retarded, I think. But carpet bombing them way worse. It could be way worse than what it is right now. And it's not downplaying maybe the seriousness of what could come from Donald Trump. I just think it could have been way worse.
Like, he's a senile old man, and I
He's
don't condone a lot of what he does, but like, he represents a minor shift to change. And like, I'm not a chaotic minded person. Like, I'm not a liberal minded person. I don't think change is always the best option. Yeah. But to me, the fact that he's somehow against the status quo in a minor fashion is a good thing.
And we were talking about earlier, it consistently jumps back and forth. Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat.
Yeah, it's a cycle.
George Bush, idiot. I don't really know much about his administration. I just know he's an idiot. He made some goofy ass decisions, and he was just an old American boy doing coke off like hookers' buttholes and stuff.
Okay.
But then right after, we have Barack Obama, which was, I think, an excellent representation of what the United States was in that moment. And now we have Donald Trump, and I think it's another clear representation of what the United States is within that moment.
Definitely.
And maybe it shouldn't have happened. Maybe if people voted, maybe if what's it called?
Bernie? Maybe if they didn't fuck him over.
Oh yeah, well maybe if they didn't fuck Bernie over. Yeah, well 100%, that would have definitely been different. So much propaganda. That's disgusting. That shit's fucked.
Yeah, I liked him at the start, and then I don't know, for whatever reason, like I thought he wasn't gonna win, and I was like, oh yeah, Donald Trump, basically the right wing version of Bernie to me.
Yeah,
in some way.
In some ways, but there also is nuance within personality, right?
Yeah, but again, see, I don't value the morality of the person when it comes to policy making.
Yeah, true.
I don't think that's really relevant.
But what about the representation of ego? Is ego morality?
Oh, no, because you can still like check your ego, but your morality, you may still be morally corrupt. Like, you may still say like bad things, and it's not necessarily coming from your ego. It could just be like you're a bad person, and it's not necessarily an ego thing.
Yeah, I'm scared of egos in power positions.
Yeah, I definitely think he's like, or Donald Trump's senile and has a big ego, but
he's like a little bitch, bro.
Well,
he's like insecure.
Maybe insecure. Like, that's the thing. That's another problem that I find like with the news. How do you know if he's like either really crazy or he's just projecting this image to distract you, or like to play this like 69D 4D chess?
It could be either way, but
see, I don't know.
Who knows? I just don't think he's that smart. I don't think he's had. I mean, you look back at his older interviews when he was like 30. He seemed very, very sharp, and obviously he was. He came from a wealthy background. And he has high education, obviously. Mm-hmm. But I couldn't see it. But maybe that's just my bias. I doubt he is playing
40 chess
just because. Well, he might be, but not appealing to my crowd.
Yeah, okay, yeah, you don't find any.
He's playing 4D chess for these rural white people who feel very disenfranchised.
Yeah.
Who's like, I'm going to stop the Mexicans from taking your job. Yes. And they're like, whoa, what we need. But who wants to do the jobs that Mexicans are doing?
And who wants to pay white Southerners to do the jobs that are there?
Yeah.
They don't want to pay them the wages, so corporations and bosses, they say, I'd rather pay this Mexican a fraction of what I can pay this white Southerner.
Under the table.
Or even like, it doesn't even have to be a white Southerner. Say that like any Southerner, or any American citizen in the South, I can pay an illegal much less. Yeah. So who is that really benefiting? It's benefiting the corporations and the business owners to have these illegal immigrants work for them. It's not benefiting the people to allow illegal immigration.
That's why I think the wall is such a goofy idea, because it is just such a a superficial.
A Band-Aid.
It's not even it's less useful than a Band-Aid, I think. You know what I mean? It's like a sticker on top of a wound.
Okay.
It's not a band. It doesn't have like a little cushion. It's like, there you go. Slap that on and we're fucking good, boy.
Yeah. Walls
Inexpensive sticker.
Walls have worked in other places of the world.
Where? Great Wall of China?
China, Mexico. Mexico has a wall on their southern border.
On their southern border?
Mm-hmm.
How long ago was this built?
I'm not quite sure, but it was to stop illegal immigration into Mexico.
But did China have drones back in the day? Walls are something different.
Yeah, they're different now, but
did they have cameras? There's just it seems like a Stone Age thought to me. It seems like Donald Trump's like, he said it one time just spontaneously and people fucking loved it. And then it like brewed in his mind. It's like, I'm going to be able to die and there will be the Great Wall of America. And you know whose legacy that's going to go along with? Donald J. Trump's legacy.
Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of like the issue is kind of, there's a bit more nuance because the Democrats under Obama actually supported a border wall.
Did they support a border wall?
Yep, they wanted a border wall. They put up a fence.
Yeah.
They wanted a border wall.
Yeah,
though.
true.
So
who though?
Who exactly?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I just know it's a Democratic talking point.
True. Yeah. Well, Obama deported the most immigrants out of any president ever.
Yeah. But that, maybe that record will be broken.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
Because Donald Trump's playing the tough dude. And he's got these ICE agents running into fucking pizza shops.
Yeah, well, and like the ICE agents under Obama weren't really doing much. There was like a catch and release policy where you're a bit like a lot of cases in like Texas, for example, like border patrols were being told to stand down when they were encountering illegal crossings. To me, that's like the question of sovereignty is like, well, what does it mean to be sovereign if your borders aren't protected?
And it's a good point.
Like, should we have no borders then? If we're gonna do this half-ass, come in if you want. What does a border mean? Like, should we just get rid of all borders then, or should we only get rid of the United States border? Like, they don't deserve to have a border.
I think the border exists there for a reason, right? But I don't know if the time and capital that is spent allocated on a wall could not be used in a better form. Whether it's cameras or whether it's just hiring more guards to guard the border and to make sure that there isn't this happening.
Yeah, I don't know. I think this issue to me is tied in with like drug scheduling in the United States, because by banning certain drugs and like this whole war against drugs, we've sort of inflated the mafia and like cartel issue in Mexico, and I think they'll probably be hit the most if we allow for legalization of certain drugs.
Of course.
And like why are we allowing this like horrendous practice of like drug smuggling, people smuggling across the southern United States border when we could solve these issues and we should focus on helping Mexico rather than like, I agree, rather than building a wall, why don't we just try and make the situation like, I'd just be curious, as North Americans, cooperate between states and make the situation in Mexico better. And I think that starts with ending the war on drugs.
I totally agree with you. There's so many ways we can go, and I totally agree that I would be curious to see someone do the math of whatever $30 billion or $20 billion, however much that wall's going to cost, that entire wall across the border, how that capital can be allocated into like what you were saying. It's maybe ending the war on drugs, maybe giving some humanitarian aid and some guidance to our downstairs neighbors, and I'd surely believe that there would be other possibilities of helping that situation, but they're really not in the business for helping.
No, and
they're in the business for their bottom line.
Part of the irony, like the fact that he's tearing up like NAFTA and like he's taking a huge protectionist stance on trade with Mexico. The deal with NAFTA between Mexico was to address the issue of illegal immigration largely. They tried to make a surplus for Mexico in order to boost that economy so people would not be going to the United States. So it's ironic now that they're tearing up this deal, which was put in place to decrease illegal immigration in the United States. And it actually has done that. More people have actually gone to Mexico than to the United States. But then, I guess there's some nuance there, because how do you know who's coming? Like, you can't really. It's not documented, right?
And statistics are skewed. No matter what, you're not going to get 100. Maybe one day with the technology, and we have drones there, and they trip off sensors that count exactly how many people come across the border at what time and what they have. Blah blah blah. All that bullshit, right? But it's just like we were talking about the shootings, like the gun shootings. It's sort of it. How much of the talking space, because we know there's a certain capacity for these issues that we can talk about, right? We can't just talk about every single issue all the time and have it all figured out. It's like, how much capacity is this illegal immigration? Is it holding too much weight within these conversations that they're having? And my guess is totally, because it is such a talking point. It's such an identity politic talking point. It riles people up, because there are some people who are affected, obviously, right? Like, it's not like it's a fake thing. There are people on the southern border who are affected by the amount of drugs that come in, and we have a drug issue,
or crime too, from individuals across.
But I don't think that the main issue is to figure out the drugs, because there are multiple scenarios that were talked about in the 80s, how the government, the CIA, brought in drugs into these communities. They brought in cocaine. They brought in crack into these.
Like in Colombia too. They were heavily involved in the cartels in Colombia.
Exactly, but into these ghettoized
Venezuela.
Into these ghettos, which were majority black at the time, right?
Oh, okay. You're talking about the United States.
Yeah. Because there was CIA, there was multiple. Go watch Freeway Rick Ross. Have you heard of Freeway Rick Ross?
Yep.
Yeah. So it's this guy who said that the CIA was bringing in this money, and they were letting him continue his dealings of selling coke, and he was making millions of dollars a day, like crazy amounts, and they were just laying it slide on the table because they wanted to have this economic, this other economic entity that they could take control of. So there's a total dirty economy within the ghettos of people making money. It's real money. They're spending it on these drugs, and they're spending it on whatever, these guns. And then once these drugs and guns and money get seized, it goes back into the government. It goes back into what they were feeding. So it's like, and it is absolutely fucking absurd. Pot. How is that still a Schedule 1 drug? How is that in the same realm as heroin? It doesn't make sense. The only way it makes sense is because there's lobbyists that fight for big pharma and fight for I don't even know.
Yeah, I think of the war on terror too, right? What happens when you claim these wars on things? You just inflate the issue, I guess. That's what it seems. Hindsight bias, obviously, but the war on terror, what happened? Oh, now we have more terror attacks ever before.
Follow the money. And what do you think where does the money go with the war on terror? The money goes into the military and industrial complex. The military industrial complex. How much money?
Well, and surveillance too, right?
Surveillance control. They're like, okay, we need to have a base here now. We need to infiltrate your country because,
or we need to spy on you on Facebook,
or anything. We need to be there for our safety. This is for our safety. And it's like, is it really, or is it just because you have the ability to fuel your economy based on the actions you take and rally your citizens up? It's crazy. And it just doesn't make sense, especially the weed thing. The weed thing is the most ridiculous thing. The most apparent, well, maybe from my understanding, because there's clearly medical benefits. There's clearly, people already do it. I don't know what effect it has on morale or economy. I don't think you should abuse it. I don't think it should be. It's a drug, right? I don't think you should we were talking about that gaping hole in our souls that we try to fill. I don't think it should be filled with fucking THC and dope and 420 Kush Blaze It King.
Yeah.
But I don't think that it has a detrimental effect on society. It may even have a positive one in the end. Who knows? We haven't gone there yet. So what's with them controlling that substance? It's got to be the money.
Yeah, and just like corruption too, right? Like
corruption, and it's
the
fueled,
power of
like
government.
you said, the only people that would really be hurt from the war on drugs ending would be the cartels, would be the organized crime.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like,
And like, you have like a serious opioid
exactly
pandemic in the United States. Like,
and what is that from? It's how much here? Let's see. Maybe we can get a point of reference. How pharmaceutical industry in the United States of America? How much do you think the U.S. spends on pharmaceuticals every year?
billions?
How many?
I don't know.
Just guess.
5 billion.
5 billion.
Yeah.
So the U.S. pharmaceutical market is the world's most important national market. Together with Canada and Mexico, it represents the largest continental pharma market worldwide. So that's saying that it's just the biggest one compared to Europe and Australia or whatever. So it's not really saying much because we fucking knew that. The United States alone holds over 45% of the global pharmaceutical market. 45%, and they have what? One third of China's population?
Yeah, so what is the value?
In 2016, this share was valued around $446 billion US.
Yeah.
So what were you off? You were off by like a 100?
45 million.
Like 100th of what it was?
Yeah.
Unbelievable shit.
Yeah, and well, it's like we feed people McDonald's and they get sick, and then we give them drugs and then they get sick, and then we just keep testing new drugs, we keep feeding them McDonald's, and then we tell them, oh, well, like, look, you're oppressed.
You're oppressed. Or it's like, you I know you want to eat McDonald's, so you just got to take this pill so you can eat your McDonald's.
Yep.
But then you might get side effects from that pill, so we're making this pill so you can take that pill so you can still eat McDonald's.
Yeah.
And then it's just a chain reaction. But and that's so I've had that conversation with lots of people, and lots of people are aware of that. Maybe younger people, I don't know, because my own grandmother falls into that, right? Like such a hypochondriac, and oh, my cholesterol, blah blah blah, like I need to take these pills for my cholesterol instead of just stop eating fucking potatoes and bread. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's like, I want to continue eating my ramen noodles that are like 50% sodium, so I'm just going to pop this pill in the morning.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah, maybe it's like the idea of the wall. It's just like a shitty Band-Aid.
Yeah. It's all bullshit. One day we're going to go out like John F. Kennedy. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
But it'll happen one day.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say?
Oh, no, I'm getting tired.
Yeah, me too. It's fucking exhausting. Guess how long that was?
Hour and 40 minutes.
Oh, you're pretty spot on. Hour 48 minutes.
Nice.
Yeah, well, Jesus Christ, that's fucking exhausting talking about all that bullshit. What are we going to do, though? Do we just keep talking about it?
Yeah, well, I don't know what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Um,
How do we get people more involved? How do we...
do you do you play the identity politics game to like get some trigger popularity?
What?
You know what I mean? Like clickbait shit.
Like me?
What?
Like me? Like personally?
Yeah. Like how do you spread popularity for?
I think it needs to... you need to play the game to change the game, homie. Don't hate the player, hate the game, dog.
Okay.
So I think if it's used properly, and whatever that means, and it's like, I don't know. I'm 21 and I live in Canada and I haven't had much life experience. We're just figuring it out right now, and I'm sure my opinion will change in 20 years when I'm 40. But I as long as I believe in what I'm doing, as long as I don't go against my beliefs. But that also doesn't mean there's so much contradiction that happens within life. That also doesn't mean don't be afraid to change your opinion.
Yep.
So it's like, I don't know, where do you find the balance? It's like that article I wrote like a month ago, and the headline was clickbait.
Yeah. How do you?
So it was clickbait, but it wasn't clickbait in the sense of hoping to monetize that. Yeah. It was clickbait in the hope to spread the message that I want to spread. So it's like, and I believe in my message that I want to spread, even though I really don't have one yet. I'm just learning. I do. We all have our own ideologies, but I'm still just trying to learn. Why? What do you think? Do you think you should play the clickbait? Do you think you need to play the game?
Yeah, I don't know. I think like your content will speak for itself once you reach a certain level.
Yeah, that's the tricky part though. It's like, how do you reach people?
Hey man, you're reaching Japan and San Francisco.
I know, it's super interesting, and I don't even think about it a lot because it's like totally different. I just like doing it because it's fun. Like we have these conversations regardless of whether we're talking into the mic.
Yep.
So it's like, it's kind of enjoyable, and it's like I'm proud of it too. It's like I'm proud that I'm being courageous by having these conversations and allowing myself to be vulnerable in front of whoever chooses to listen.
Yeah. And
this is vulnerability, right? And I'm willing for anybody to challenge my thought. I think about one day when it does blow up. Who knows when it'll be? 6 years from now? Like I have no idea, but I just want to be prepared for when it does happen, that I have sustainability so I can create capital, because I want to live and I want to do what I want to do. I don't want to have to work a shitty job. I don't want to work. So it's like, hopefully one day.
Yeah.
But who knows? I'm not focused on that right now.
I'm just thinking about how many times I swore in that podcast.
I don't think very many. I don't think.
I'd say like 5 times. Maybe
5
more,
times?
maybe more.
No, see, I said fucking way more than you did. And I was like, wow, Luke's pretty...
I'm self-conscious though. I'm self-conscious about it.
Why?
Well, you know, these things are eternal.
Yeah, that's true. 100, I guess it is eternal. It'll be around for as long, but
yeah,
I ain't worried about no crassness.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a self-expression thing.
Yeah, and like whatever, I'm 21.
Yeah. What? Even, I don't know. I don't think when I have children, I'll be like, I honestly probably don't care. Just understand the environment you're in before making the decisions.
Yep.
I don't know. That's a whole other subject.
All
right, that's it. Ricky, any final words? Shout out to San Francisco. Shout out to Mark Lantois. Shout out to all the homies. I appreciate you all so much. It's been a long journey. We're on episode 22 here. I believe 22. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And if I'm not, fuck it, dude. Just kidding. There has been, I was thinking about it. I don't want to drag this on. We've already said goodbye to you. But there's probably over like 40 hours of me just talking on the internet now. It's like the amount of embarrassing shit that's probably been said is...
No turning back.
There's no turning back, and it is what it is, all right?
Yeah.
Have some faith, people.
Peace.
Peace.